All right, so Terence Crawford is obviously lying. So when it comes to this Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. fight, as you already know, it's been canceled, and Terence Crawford is now having a big fight with David Avanesyan, quote unquote big fight. So a lot of stuff that I've been hearing from Terence Crawford, who usually isn't very vocal about his situation or about his fights, he's been very vocal recently, especially by releasing a bunch of stuff on YouTube. And the first thing I gotta say about this is I just don't believe him. I think that he's lying. And the first lie that I would say that he told is the fact that he said, or I've heard this from multiple sources, that he has said that he's getting $10 million guaranteed for the David Avanesyan fight. Now that doesn't even make any sense, because that fight is $40, and in order for BLK Prime to even sell $10 million worth of pay-per-views, he would have to sell 250,000 pay-per-views. He's never even come close to selling 250,000 pay-per-views. And this fight against the no-name fighter, he's not going to sell 250,000 pay-per-views. So why would BLK Prime guarantee that he is going to make $10 million for a fight that isn't even going to make $10 million worth of revenue? Even if you include the live gate, like the live gate versus Spence versus Crawford, or Spence versus Porter, which was a big fight, the live gate for it was $2.5 to $2.6 million. So even if you include the live gate, they would still barely break even, unless this man sold an obscene amount of pay-per-views, 300, 400, 500,000, which he's not. Also, they're not even advertising this fight. I haven't seen not a single advertisement for it. If I wasn't on YouTube all the time, I wouldn't even know about this fight. The average sports fan doesn't know about this fight. And in order for Terence Crawford to sell 250,000 pay-per-views, the average Joe on the street would have to know what's going on. And they don't. If you're not on YouTube, you don't even know he's having a fight. So there's no way that he's getting $10 million guarantee unless BLK Prime is okay with losing money for some reason, or he's just lying so he doesn't look bad for not taking the Errol Spence Jr. fight. So he may say that, but I don't personally believe it. It may be true, but that's not the worst of his lies. I could understand if that one may possibly be true. The second thing that he said was that Al Haymon had been negotiating with the lawyer on his behalf for months, and that lawyer did not represent him, and did not represent Team Crawford, and he didn't know who that lawyer was.
How goes into saying a guy that I don't know, never represented me, not affiliated with Team Crawford, have no whatsoever place in Team Crawford's stable, representing me in a contract which I have no nothing upon that I agreed to. So basically that was a standpoint of what the contract looked like.
Then that's bullshit. Ain't no way. Now he could have said, my team hired this particular lawyer to negotiate the fight. I did not like the deal that the lawyer negotiated, so I did not accept the deal, and I was gonna go ahead and fight against David Avanesyan. That would have been the truth, or closer than the truth than saying that some random dude in a suit just walked into Al Haymon's office, said that he was Terence Crawford's lawyer, negotiated a fight for months without Terence Crawford knowing that the guy was negotiating the fight, and without Al Haymon knowing that the guy was an imposter. So you really expect us to believe that? That makes absolutely no sense. Like, he just walked in there and was all like, hey, I'm Terence Crawford's lawyer. Now he was like, oh, you must be that slick talking lawyer from Nebraska here to negotiate the fight. Let me go ahead and negotiate the fight with you for months. And you can go back and tell Terence Crawford what we negotiate. So honestly, if that's true, then how did you know the proposals in which they were making if that lawyer wasn't relaying them to you? And why in that recording with Errol Spence, he said Terence Crawford doesn't trust his lawyer, not, oh no, we were negotiating with the wrong lawyer who didn't even represent Terence Crawford. Like, you really expect us to believe that big of a lie? I'll believe that you're gonna make $100 million on the David Avanesyan fight before I believe that Al Haymon had been negotiating with the wrong lawyer for months. How fucking stupid do you think people are? How stupid do you think people are? Come on, be real. The third thing, so he said that he had met with some YouTuber, or was released on YouTube from a YouTuber that basically said he had met with him in a 7-Eleven and that the fight was going to happen because he has agreed to all terms. Terence Crawford has agreed to all terms. If Terence Crawford had agreed to all terms, then the fight would have happened. It would have. So that's a blatant lie as well. There's no way he would have agreed to all terms. And then it came back, oh, he agreed to all terms, but he just wants transparency. And this is one that Fanon, International Boxing, was talking about. He said that there is transparency. Because of the Ali Act, and I looked it up, because of the Ali Act, you are guaranteed transparency. What Terence Crawford wanted was approval, meaning that he wanted to control everything about the fight. We're gonna go into this venue. This is how much we're gonna spend on advertisement. This is how we're gonna advertise. You can't have this billboard because it's $2,000. Get this billboard, it's $1,000. The vendor isn't gonna be Coca-Cola, it's gonna be Pepsi. Because when you give someone approval over every little thing like that, especially one, you're not gonna give the B-side approval over that type of stuff. Because if you did give them approval over every little detail, it would take forever to make the fight. You have to get things moving quickly in order to get the fight done and to get it made within the time in which they want it made. You have to go ahead and start advertising. You have to go ahead and get the vendors. You have to go ahead and get the venue. You have to go ahead and pay the security, pay the insurance. You have to do all that. You can't give this man approval over all that. Because just like Bridezilla, you know how like a Bridezilla is on that show where they'll argue about every little detail and then they'll make everything take way longer? That's what Terence Crawford will be doing. He'd be a Bridezilla. He's petty. You know he'd argue about everything. Oh, you spent $25 on pens so that, you know, and little notepads so that the people on the staff can make notes? Why would you do that? You could have went to Dollar Tree and instead of spending $25, spent $11.75. You done wasted $12.25. That's the type of stuff he would argue about. Not to that extent, but you know what I mean. It's like that lyric by whatever that rapper's name in Chicago. He's all like, kill a clown over my gual, I don't give a fuck if it was $10. That's Terence Crawford. He will argue over $10. Not kill, but argue. So he didn't want transparency, he wanted control. And then the last thing is, he said that he wanted to speak with Errol Spence and Al Haymon and have them in a room directly to talk to him. That don't make no sense either. Because when it comes down to it, why would Errol Spence get into a room with him to negotiate a fight? He is a fighter, not a lawyer, not an actuary, not an accountant, a fighter. He spends his professional career, the majority of it, learning how to fight, learning how to hurt people, putting himself in a mindset to hurt people. So if him and Terence Crawford are in there arguing over money, what is most likely going to happen? They are going to fight and hurt each other and probably hurt some of the people in the room and get sued and have to pay medical bills, and the whole fight would be off because you put these two hyper masculine, very tough men together and they're gonna fight because they're arguing over money. One of the Migos, Takeoff, he was killed and hurt recently in a dispute over a dice game. And apparently Shakur Stevenson was also in the same venue when that happened. So do you think that you can have two guys who aren't professionals at negotiating, who don't even like each other, who personally don't like each other, go into a room and negotiate a fight? It's gonna take way longer. There's gonna be way more emotions involved, and it's extremely risky because there's a huge chance that they'll just end up physically fighting each other. And then the only people who get to see the fight is Al Haymon and Terence Crawford's lawyers and maybe a couple other people in the room. Also, when I'm thinking about it, but didn't Tank Davis hit Ryan Garcia in the club when Ryan Garcia came up to him talking about when we gonna make this fight? And they've been wanting to make that fight forever. That's what I'm saying. So why would you get the two fighters in a room to negotiate a fight? Don't make no sense. And not the fans. So that's dumb too. So just to keep it short, that's why all the reasons why I think Terence Crawford is just BSing, and I just don't believe him. I don't believe him. I mean, you're welcome to believe him if you want to. You're welcome to say that he didn't duck the fight or he's not a duck. I'm not even calling him a duck. I'm just saying I don't believe what he's saying, because what he's saying doesn't make any sense. I can understand if you believe some of it, but to believe all of that is crazy. To believe that he's going to get paid $10 million for a fight that isn't even worth $10 million. To believe that his lawyer wasn't actually his lawyer and they were negotiating with the wrong person for months. To believe that he agreed to all the terms when he clearly didn't agree to all the terms. To believe that he just wants transparency when he doesn't. He's a control freak. He wants approval and control. And then also to believe that he really thinks that he should be in a room with Errol Spence and Al Haymon together to negotiate the fight makes no sense. Makes no business sense. And if he thinks that that's how things should be done, then Bob Arum was right and he has no idea what he's doing, and he's just a bad business person, and he's made a lot of bad decisions in his career. And those bad decisions make sense if this is how he approaches business. But that's all I gotta say. I'm not saying that Terence Crawford is a bad fighter, because he's a great fighter, fantastic fighter. I just don't get it. Like the more he talks about it, the less I understand what he's doing. The more it sounds like BS, the more it seems extremely unlikely. And that's all I really gotta say about that. I'm out.